Hey guys, I'm Evan Thorpe. This is Michelle Martinelli, and this is our For the Win college football breakdown where we look at some of the biggest games from last week and this upcoming week, and we try to figure out who's in the top 4 seeds for the college football playoffs. And Michelle, we got to talk about some outcomes that probably shifted some teams' chances with all these upsets, so many upsets this week. And let's start off in the SEC where Florida beat LSU, and we got to talk about how bad this is for LSU, who is one of those teams who are probably, right on the edge of getting in, just waiting for somebody to mess up.
LSU is already going to have a little bit of trouble making a college football playoff argument because it was going to have to come out of the SEC West with Alabama. And so the odds of it making the conference championship were already low. And a loss like this almost midway through the season isn't great. LSU is out of the playoff picture, in my opinion, because it still has to play Alabama, it still has to play Georgia, Mississippi State, and Texas A&M. There's at least one more loss in there and probably at least 2, and you're not getting a 3-loss SEC team in the college football playoff.
Yeah, I definitely don't see a team with 3 losses playing in the college football playoffs, unless they switch it to 12 teams, which I doubt. Speaking of 12, the Big 12 matchup with Dicker, the kicker, kicking a game-winning field goal to lead Texas over Oklahoma. And Oklahoma was probably 5th or 6th when it came to teams ranked or in that playoff picture, just right there. But you got to think their chances are out. But more importantly, is Texas back?
I think throughout the whole game, Texas fans particularly are sitting there watching the Longhorns run up the score, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, Texas is back, Texas is back. And even, Texas had a 45-24 lead in the 4th quarter, and you're thinking all they got to do is run out the clock, and this is a double-digit win over your rival. And then Oklahoma quarterback Kyler Murray comes in, reminds you why he's a Heisman Trophy candidate this season. He led the Sooners to 3 touchdowns in the 4th quarter to tie the game, including a massive 67-yard touchdown run from him, and tied the game. And then Dicker, the kicker, Cameron Dicker is a freshman for Texas, kicks a 40-yard field goal to win the game.
Yeah, probably the biggest night of his life.
Oh, for sure. That was a huge moment.
All right, now we kind of hinted towards some of these upsets and how they affected the college football playoff landscape. For Oklahoma, do they have a chance to get in with this loss?
Oklahoma's probably out of the playoff race at this point. They entered this weekend as a bubble team. They were favored to beat Texas. But now you've got this loss, and a 1-loss Big 12 team is going to have a really hard time getting in there. Oklahoma probably needed to be undefeated to stand a chance and try and jump over one of these other SEC teams. And it's not looking good because there's too many teams that still have the chance to go undefeated, like Notre Dame, like Clemson, like Alabama, and that's just not going to bode well for a 1-loss Big 12 team.
Yeah, and Notre Dame won, so I think their playoff hopes are still alive. It's just trying to win these games that for the playoff committee probably don't see as big games, but you have those games in the beginning of the year. And I know last week you predicted your top 4 teams in. This week I'm going to go, and for me it's pretty simple. Number 1, Alabama. Number 1 team in the nation, best team in the nation.
You can't deny that.
Can't deny that. Number 2, I have Ohio State. They're looking like they're going to represent the Big Ten, who didn't have somebody go into the college football playoffs last year, but with an undefeated record, if they don't lose one of those 2 big games towards the end or overlook somebody like they did last year, I got them in. Next up, I have Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame has done enough to keep them in that, 3rd or 4th seed, depending on how they close out this season. But they've won 3 ranked games so far this year, and I think if they can just continue to keep that momentum and beat teams like they're supposed to, they will get in. And last, I have Georgia getting in, the 2nd SEC team. The 2nd year the SEC will have 2 teams in. I think if they remain undefeated and lose to Alabama in the championship, but it's a close game, you have to look at them over a 1-loss champion in the ACC, Big 12, or Pac-12. Washington is right there, but I just really think an SEC team with 1 loss, and it being Alabama, gives them a little bit more of an edge over any other team.
But so we agree that Clemson's out.
Yeah, I think Clemson's out, and you could go undefeated, but you have some ugly wins, and the ACC just isn't strong this year.
No, Clemson does not have that strong of a schedule. I don't see it being impossible for them to show up to the ACC championship game undefeated, probably end up playing Miami in there, and even if they come away with a win there, I still think you got to give the edge to a one-loss SEC team just because the ACC is not that strong this year.
The team I just mentioned, Washington, they have a big game this weekend that could, help their chances in the future of getting into the playoffs. They play Oregon, and for Washington, is this the game they need to continue to just keep their name around that college football first four in?
I mean, I don't know that their name is that close to around it, but if the Pac-12 is going to have a representative in the college football playoff, it's going to be Washington now that Stanford has a couple losses. But the Huskies don't just have to win. They are going to need some help. They're going to need some other pieces to fall ahead of them. They might need Notre Dame to lose. They might need Georgia to lose. That might not even be enough. They're going to need some help to get their name in there, but they certainly have to win if they want any chance to be part of that conversation a few weeks down the road.
Another game we have to look at where a team could potentially sneak in is this Wisconsin versus Michigan matchup. What team needs this win more in order to keep their playoff chances alive if Ohio State slips up?
100% Michigan needs to win this game more. Wisconsin's trying to, I feel like, still bounce back from a tough loss to BYU earlier this year. But they're in the Big Ten West, not that competitive this year. It's pretty reasonable that they're going to be in the Big Ten championship game. Michigan, on the other hand, after Wisconsin, still has to deal with Penn State, Michigan State, and Ohio State. Those are all potentially toss-up games, and Michigan needs all the help it can get because it already has an early loss to Notre Dame on its schedule. So if it wants to have a chance at the playoff, which is still a long shot at this point, you're looking at the Big Ten Conference Championship game. It needs Ohio State to lose, it needs to win this game, and then it needs to keep winning.
You think Harbaugh can get a win in Michigan?
I mean, these are the kind of wins that Harbaugh was brought in to get, and he just hasn't done it yet.
Yeah.
I think it depends which team shows up in this scenario. If the Wisconsin team that lost to BYU shows up, Michigan's going to roll them. If the Michigan team that barely beat Northwestern last week shows up, who knows? This could be a really ugly game or this could be an awesome game.
I have Wisconsin winning.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
I genuinely don't know.
That's my opinion. But that was this episode of For the Win College Football Breakdown. I'm Evan Thorpe. This is Michelle Martinelli. Thank you for watching.